Jeffrey's question for this symposium was, what one experiment could prove the fundamental nature of consciousness? And he also gave it to us in another form. What is a research project that would revolutionize the field? So following up on a key part of Stuart's presentation just now, I'm going to propose a simple answer. So answer being experiments that prove the existence of the Platonic world. The Platonic world, as Roger Penrose outlined it in his book, Shadows of the Mind, his follow-up book to Emperor's New Mind, Shadows of the Mind. And I've got the diagram from his book there where he presents this idea of the three worlds, or the three domains of reality: the Platonic world, and the physical world, and the mental world. And on this view, is page 414 of Shadows of the Mind. On this view, the Platonic world and the physical world are objective reality, and the mental world is subjective reality. So the mental world is also the world of experience, perceptions, and perceiving part of consciousness. So why do I propose this answer to Jeffrey's question? The answer that experiments that prove the existence of the Platonic world, or the Penrose Platonic world, are the revolutionary, would revolutionize this field of science of consciousness and consciousness studies. Stuart alluded to this same why as well, that being that this type of ontology is the only way we can understand things like conscious agency, non-local consciousness, life after death, reincarnation, samadhi and awakened states of consciousness, and meaning, essentially. So here's the Penrose Plato ontology of reality in the middle, in the context of other views of ontologies of reality. And on the left, you have idealism, where I've marked in green the spheres, the worlds that on these different views are actually fundamental. So in idealism, only the mental world is really real, is fundamentally real, and precipitates out the other worlds. And then on the right, materialism, only the physical world is fundamentally real and precipitates out the other worlds. So in both of those other approaches, the Penrose's Platonic world doesn't exist at all. And so also Penrose, like Stuart mentioned, this Platonic view of reality, and that Penrose endorses, is also can be called like Whitehead's dual aspect monism. And that's kind of confusing though, because dual aspect implies two aspects, whereas there's really three. And so then the dual aspect view would want to collapse the Platonic world into a type of creation of the mental world, which, as Roger Penrose emphasizes in Shadows of the Mind, isn't what they think reality is. It has a fundamental reality of its own. So I'm just going to briefly talk about, because this is kind of an overview, I'm just going to briefly talk about applying that view of, do various experiments going on in the field, do they address this fundamental ontology. Just a little bit on AI and quantum computing, and Santos Helar's sentiometer experiments, and a little review of Orkor, and including the quantum time crystals that Anirban was alluding to, and Bose-Einstein condensate type tests. So AlphaGo crushed the best human professional Go player of all time in 2016. And that was a follow-up to Deep Blue, which beat the best human Go chess player a couple of decades earlier. And so clearly AI, as it exists now, is definitely domain smart. It's definitely domain smart. Even it not only passes Turing type tests, but it's transhuman in some ways, does a lot of things better than humans. Uh, uh, but are they conscious? Okay. So on this view, AI, even though they are very intelligent, they're not conscious because they don't involve the other aspects beyond the physical. And the sequence of a sequence of development here can go back to when the Vedic ontology of consciousness was first introduced to the West by Vivekananda, and I view that that version of Vedic ontology of consciousness as basically aligned with the same as that Penrose Platonic ontology of reality that was presented in the second slide. And although that view, that ontology, did get a lot of interest in the 1890s when Vivekananda introduced it to the West, in the 1890s, the pre-modern physics, the world of science, it could not be causally connected to a world of consciousness, souls, Atman, because classical physics is causally closed. But modern physics creates an opening in the causal structure of the physical universe that allows for a reunification with Vedic ontology and the Platonic ontology of reality. And that route allows us a route forward to a reunification, not a return to the pre-modern. That operates necessarily, however, beyond space-time locality, and it can work now, like Roger Penrose showed us, in by connecting with modern physics in a way that it could not have been connected with classical physics. So classical computing, AI on this view would never be conscious. It can be intelligent, even more intelligent than humans, but not conscious. But possibly in the future, quantum computing, AI, might become conscious. And there's in the right a picture of Hartmut Neven, the founder of Google's quantum AI project, and a picture of one of Google's quantum computers. And Hartmut, at our August Neuroscience Needs a Revolution to Understand Consciousness conference, he presented on an experiment idea, and these are captures from his August presentation at CIHS, and this project that is really underway is a research program that's testing the conjecture that quantum operations are necessary and sufficient to create sentience. And he uses a generalized Penrose-Hameroff conjecture to contextualize this experiment. It's an actual experiment that they're doing, and the experiment is this: to connect quantum processor, a quantum computing processor, to a human brain, or to a brain generally, and to then the subjective experience of the owner of the brain can report, does that connection with more quantum collapsing processors create a concomitant increase in change of conscious subjective experience. And their goal is to create actual product around this. Google's a company, after all. So on this criteria, does this experiment give us evidence of the existence of the Platonic world? Well, so on the three arrows in Roger Penrose's three worlds ontology of reality, does this experiment test whether conscious experience is generated by quantum collapse? Yes, it does. So it does test that. And by connecting with external collapse directly to the brain in superposition, this is the only or first experiment to test this in a positive sense. Like anesthesia tests that in a negative sense. It turns that off. But this is apparently the first or only experiment that actually will test that in a positive sense. Does it test whether conscious agency is enabled through Platonic world involvement in state selection in the physical world? No, it doesn't test that. But maybe this experimental setup could be used in different ways to start to test that. But Hartmut and his team's view of the ontology of reality excludes the Platonic world anyway, so they're not looking into that. Okay, Santos Helar presented for the first time a new type of experiment, was sort of new type of experiment at the Taormina Science of Consciousness. And I shared my concurrent presentation with him because he sent in this new experimental results just before the conference, and they're very interesting. He puts together a device, a very simple device that's just laser diodes going through an aperture, and therefore developing diffraction bands, diffraction patterns, and measures the outlying bands of the diffraction patterns. So it measures the interference part of the diffraction patterns. And he just puts this device next to a brain, a conscious brain, and the actual embodiment of the device is even simpler. It's simple circular apertures, and he finds an enormous effect where he says this is repeatable, a huge effect where there's a change in the diffraction patterns observed inside the device when you put it near the conscious brain. He's done it with animal brains and all sorts of other brains, and he's tested for other effects, like is it just heating or something like that. And he says it's a very repeatable result. We'll see. So this one, let's apply our test. Does this prove the existence or evidence for the existence of the Platonic world? Does this test whether consciousness, Platonic world, can affect the physical world through the collapse selection? Yes, it does test that. But it is not clear if the diffraction pattern shift is really a collapse selection. At best, it's only a partial collapse trigger. Does it test conscious agency? No, it doesn't. Does it test whether physical quantum collapse generates conscious experience. No, it does not test that. And what can be looked at as a variation of the same experiment has been done for a while by Dean Radin, for example, where that experimental setup is applying magical intention. So it's a magical intention version of the same photon aperture diffraction centiometer type device. And so what do those experiments mean? Well, they mean similar things, but also they do test whether conscious agency. So it tests another leg of the Penrose Platonic ontology of reality. Okay. Okay. And then, of course, we had a great overview of the Hameroff-Penrose model and how there are many tests now in process and experiments assessing that. So I'm just going to go skip over that and just summarize. So anesthesia, it does test that second arrow that it turns off the conscious experience because it turns off the quantum collapsing connection in some way. And then in the under the Gran Sasso Mountains, the particle physics laboratory there, they put a hunk of germanium and watched it to look for quantum Penrose type quantum gravity collapse. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a second. And then there's honor bonds, quantum time crystals, and artificial nanobrain. These are all tests in the same category of experiments. So what that experiment on the Gran Sasso Mountains is really really simple. They just take a hunk of germanium, but a very finely machined hunk of germanium, and watch it for radiation. And the mountain shields out noise. And they don't find the gravitational collapse type of radiation, but it's really only testing for a Diossi model type of the Penrose, so Diossi-Penrose radiation, and it's not really testing for the Penrose radiation because he doesn't predict radiation because on the Penrose model of how the quantum gravity collapse works, it's a retrocausal backward in time type process. Okay, let's see, for time's sake, well, just quickly on this, all right, we could use Bose-Einstein condensates also to test this. And that was proposed by Roger Penrose, I think in 2014. So on this approach, the Bose-Einstein condensates, they represent quantum objects that are near macroscopic coherent matter waves. And a constraint on Bose-Einstein condensates experiments has been their limitation that they were only able to be done in post-operation for just creating these BECs very briefly, but just in 2022, there's been the creation of continuous non-post Bose-Einstein condensates. So we could have a project proposed by Penrose to test near macroscopic blobs of BECs and watch them until they collapse due to Penrose type quantum gravity. And we could also use the same type of experimental setup to test intention-based quantum collapse perhaps as well. And in this case, it would be a very clearly direct quantum collapse of Bose-Einstein condensates near macroscopic superposition. So meditation, experiments, meditation, spiritual esoteric practices, those experiments also can, those type of experiences and experiments can give us insight to this ontology of reality as well. Savikalpa Samadhi, which is still object-oriented, gives us insight into the second arrow in the diagram. And Nirvikalpa Samadhi, which is not object-oriented, gives us insight into the direct Platonic world, perhaps. And the whole category of anomalous phenomena and parapsychology experiments also can be seen as giving us information in those two arrows on this ontology of reality. And this is a chart putting together a timeline of the development of computer science and examples of computers in development, along with the development of the physics that is involved in those type of computers, and types of things happening in nature that align with those type of physics, and the physics, the development timeline of the physics itself. And you see there on the bottom where we are now, the bottom line is where we have what I've called actual theory, which is also basically the whole category of theories that apply the tri-domain Penrose Platonic ontology of reality. And that then is why I say that experiments that show this aspect of domain of reality are going to be the revolutionary experiments in the field, and they open up an entire new field of theory and physics, and connected with metaphysics, yet to be worked out and explored. Okay, my time's up.